everyone, welcome back. I hope you're all doing very well. So today we're going to talk about a topic that I'm really passionate about, and it is addiction and whether self-harm can be considered as an addiction. I'm really happy to be talking about this today because I think this is something that should be way more talked about. So first off, what I'm going to try to do in this video is give you an overview of what addiction looks like so you can have a better picture, and at the end of the video I'm going to try to answer the question of whether self-harm can be an addiction or not. Of course, first disclaimer of the video before I even discuss whether self-harm can be an addiction or not. Just like every other addiction, just because someone can be addicted to something doesn't mean that everyone who uses the behavior or the substance is addicted to it. Most people who use alcohol are not addicted to it, yet alcohol is a very addictive substance. And believe me or not everyone who uses heroin is addicted to it. So just try to keep this in your mind when you're going through this video. Just because someone can be addicted to something doesn't mean that everyone who uses it or does it is addicted to it. So first off, like I told you before, in this first part of the video, I'm going to try to share an overview of what addiction looks like. And big surprise to anyone who's ever watched this channel before, I'm going to use the DSM-5 definition of addiction and the criteria. If you don't know, the DSM is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illness. This is the manual that clinicians, so psychologists, psychiatrists, use to diagnose mental illness. There's 11 criteria for addiction in the DSM-5, and I'm going to go through them, and at the same time I'm going to share whether I can relate to them with my own experience of self-harm or not. The second disclaimer of the video is that these criteria really have been built with substance addiction in mind, or what is called substance use disorder, basically being addicted to a substance, to a drug. So not all of them really apply very well to self-harm, but I think overall it really can. And so when I read them out loud to you, I'm going to change the phrasing just a little bit so it can apply to self-harm. Some of them won't apply 100% or won't feel right 100%, but that's because it was created more for substance addiction, not really behavioral addiction. Right now, the only behavioral addiction, so an addiction where you're addicted to a behavior that is recognized by the DSM-5, is gambling addiction. So yes, if they don't sound completely right, it's not because self-harm can't be described as an addiction, it's because those specific criteria weren't really built for self-harm or for behavioral addiction. But overall, I think they still fit very well. So before we dive into each single criteria, you can separate them into 4 categories, and this is what it looks like. You can separate them into impaired control, social problems, risky use, and physical dependence. And of course, as usual, all sources are in the description if you want to check them out for yourself. And there is also different levels of severity, and you would need to meet 6 or more criteria to be diagnosed with substance use disorder, or basically to be diagnosed with an addiction. Okay, so the first criteria is hazardous use, so you have used the behavior in ways that are dangerous to yourself. And right out of the bat, I don't think this is one that translates very well to self-harm, because that would basically mean you have self-harm in a way that is detrimental to yourself. And when you're talking about a substance, basically like alcohol, I think this is a very good criteria because you can use alcohol in safe ways. You can use like just a glass of wine with friends, or you can have a massive binge drink. With self-harm, putting yourself in danger and harming your body is kind of the name of the game. So I think it doesn't really translate well. So needless to say that this is a criteria I highly relate to. My self-harm was dangerous to my body, I have scars from my self-harm, I put myself in danger of infection. This is something that self-harm does to you. It makes you put your body at risk. And this is not something that only happens when you have very big wounds, so to say, or wounds that would require stitches or medical attention. This is present at all stages of self-harm. So the second criteria is social problems related to the behavior. So your behavior has caused social problems or conflicts with others. And again, this is one I highly relate to, because when my parents found out I was self-harming, they weren't happy about it. And even though I wasn't kicked out or anything, this was something that was highly distressing to them and to our relationship. Even though they handled it very well, it was still something that was highly distressing. So yes, my self-harm definitely caused social and family problems. Third criteria is neglecting major roles in your life to use the behavior. So for example, failing to meet responsibilities at school or work in your family because of your behavior. This is not something I highly relate to. I definitely think it could be possible in a self-harm scenario. This is not something I personally feel like I have done, because I was always very scared of people finding out and of people, I think, changing their opinion of me. So this is something I was quite high functioning about, I guess you could say. and this was quite kept under control. So the fourth symptom is withdrawal. So when you can't do the behavior that you want to do, you have withdrawal symptoms. And I think when we hear withdrawal symptoms, we think of very physical symptoms like headaches, like vomiting, like body aches, like not being able to get out of bed. And this is something that can be very real with substance addiction, especially to opiates or to alcohol. But this is not the whole picture of what withdrawal is. Withdrawal doesn't only have a physical side to it, it definitely has a mental side as well. And if you feel extremely distressed when you can't self-harm, or if you want to stop self-harm and you find it extremely difficult, this is also withdrawal. Withdrawal symptoms can definitely be emotional as well. Irritability, mood changes, things like that, depression, when you stop self-harming, can definitely be withdrawal symptoms. And I've definitely experienced that when I wanted to stop self-harming. It was very hard to manage what that brought to me because I was so used to the pain and I was so used to using it as a coping skill that when it was taken away, it was very hard. Criteria number 5 is tolerance. So basically that means you need more and more of the substance or of the behavior to have the same effect. And again, this is something I deeply relate to. I don't think most people start self-harming by having extreme open wounds that need medical attention. Most of us, at least it was the case for me, start with very small wounds, with scratches, with bite marks. And then you need a bit more of it to stay satisfied, and a bit more, and a bit more. And it escalates. And that is a classic sign of addiction to substance or to a behavior. You need more and more and more. So number 6 is using the behavior in larger amounts or for longer than before. I think this criteria is quite similar to the one before, but basically yes, you usually start doing it more and more and more. Number 7 is very interesting and it's repeated attempts to stop but being unable to. Again, that's basically the name of the game with addiction. You want to stop but you can't, or you find it very, very difficult. And again, that is something that I have definitely felt. You can go watch my story of how my parents found out if you want to know a bit more and a bit more about my story. But yes, I have tried to stop a few times before I stopped for good, and it was extremely hard. And I think if you listen to anyone's story with self-harm, this is a very common point, is that it's very hard to stop. Criteria number 8 is that the substance, or the behavior in this case, is taking up a lot of your time and of your thought space. And again, this is something that I really relate to, not because I was self-harming 24/7, but because the time I had to spend hiding, thinking about how I could hide it, thinking of scenarios when I could self-harm again, did take a lot of time and especially a lot of space in my head. I was thinking about self-harm a lot. This is not only just the time commitment of the actual self-harm, it is the thought commitment. It's all the time you spend thinking about the behavior, and in my case it was pretty high. Number 9 is physical or psychological problems related to the behavior. Again, I think this is one that doesn't quite translate very well with self-harm because you probably going to have some physical side effects from your self-harm, especially in the case of scarring, which is my situation. But I think as much as self-harm helped me when I was in depression, it probably made it worse as well. So again, this is not one I hard relate to, but I still do relate. Hey, so it's later the same day and I'm editing a video and apparently I forgot to go over criteria number 10 because I'm not a very good YouTuber. So I'm going to do it here. So criteria number 10 is activities given up to use the behavior. And again, this is something I sadly relate to. At the time when I was self-harming, I was taking dance lessons. I had been taking them for something like 7 years, I think, something like that, a very long time. And I stopped taking them, and a non-negligible part of why I stopped dancing is because I didn't want to have to do sports in short sleeves and have my scars on show. And that doesn't count the countless times where I didn't go swimming because I didn't want to show my scars. That doesn't count the countless activities where I was extremely hot, not sexy hot like sweaty hot, because I didn't want to show my scars. So, and again, I think this is something that a lot of people who self-harm can relate to, and I definitely do. And last but definitely not least of the 11 criteria for addiction is craving, or what we usually call urges when it comes to self-harm. So it's that deep, deep feeling of wanting to self-harm and you need to do it now, not in 2 minutes, not in 2 days, right now. It's this very strong, intense urge that almost feels like a need to self-harm. And by the way I describe it, you can probably tell that this is something I really relate to as well. Okay, so now that I've walked you through all the criteria for addiction, I think we can finally answer the big question. So yes, self-harm can definitely be an addiction. It definitely was in my case, and I've made a poll on Instagram, and this was the results. More than 90% of people felt like they have been addicted to self-harm at some point. And scientific studies and literature do support that self-harm can be an addiction. Basically, when you hurt yourself, your body produces endorphins to cope with the pain, and this endorphin is a very addictive substance. And if you overstimulate that part of your body that overproduces endorphins, over time you need more and more and more, just like in an addiction. Most self-injury researchers agree that self-injury does show some addictive qualities and may serve as a form of self-medication for some individuals. The immediate effects of pain release mood-boosting endorphins, while the delayed effects are damaging, reinforcing addictive maladaptive coping strategies that induce shame. Recognition of the addictive properties of self-injury for some individual is the basis of the addiction hypothesis. The addiction theory suggests that self-injurious acts may solicit involvement of the endogenous opioid system, or EOS, which regulates both pain perception and levels of endogenous endorphins, which occurs as a result of injury. And so to finish that video, I really wish this is something mental health professionals that deal with people who self-harm knew more. I will always remember my brilliant psychiatrist that I had a few years that was prescribing me my medication, who was a brilliant psychiatrist who spent a lot of time listening to my experience, and he didn't know self-harm could be an addiction, and I taught him that. And that's when I realized, wow, this is something that professionals don't know, that they really should know to be able to help us better and to be able to understand what we're going through. So I really hope this is something that will come about in the next few years in training and in how self-harm is viewed, because I think if you remove the addiction part to understanding self-injury, you're missing a big piece of what's going on. So that's it for today. I'm really happy I made this video. This is a video I've been wanting to do for a long time. And as usual, I really want to know what your experience was like with self-injury and addiction. Did you feel addicted to your self-harm? Did you not feel addicted to your self-harm? What was your experience like? This is something I really want to know. So as always, if you want to chat with me, you can hit me up on Instagram. Link is in the description. As always, I answer to every DM I get, and I will see you very soon.